We will now move a little bit to also the good governance or kind of corporate development, which was already mentioned previously. And for this panel, we have 3 persons. I will start from here to there. So we have Aida Yusufovic, is that correct? You are working for the UNA Consulting in Bosnia-Herzegovina, which is actually specialized on these kind of projects. And you have been working for almost 8 years on local governance and decentralizing projects, which are actually run by the Swiss government. Okay. So you're working in projects similar to the one of Prior, but you were not involved directly in that. Jose. Call him Jose. Officially, Josef Gunton. You are the director of cooperation in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and since it's an integrated embassy, you're also deputy of the Swiss mission in Sarajevo since 2013. And Iljana Canova, you are the chairman of board of the MIDF, and we will look at what MIDF stands for at the end of this session. And you're also director at the EBRD, which is, does anybody know by heart? It's written there, right? No, it's not written there. It's a European Bank for Reconstructions and Development. Okay. But I would like actually to start with you, Aida. In this video, we saw the mayor of Prijedor who said that the interaction, the participation between the authorities and the resident was important, as it was also illustrated actually in the project before. With your experience, can you tell us how this can be organized? What are examples you have? And the second question I would like to add on that is also, to what extent is this really key for a success for such a project like the one we kind of just discovered in Prijedor?
First of all, I would like to greet you all and thank you for this great opportunity to share some of my experience working on Swiss projects, especially with the Swiss taxpayers.
We're all happy citizens since we pay.
Citizens, yeah. That's right. And to come back to your questions about interaction with the citizens, it all starts with the appropriate strategic planning and setting the priorities together in transparent way with the citizens. Of course, if you look or if you paid attention to the video, it was not difficult to present to the citizens the priority of the investment in the water supply, when there was like 20%, only 20% of the citizens who had a regular 24 hours per day water supply. And then by getting them involved in this planning and getting them on the board in the issues that are of their concern, such as water supply, this is the way how they get interested in our governance issue. It also builds the trust between, as you could also see from the testimony, between the returnee community and the authorities. But it is also about their citizens' rights, but also about the obligations. As we said, why it was important for the success of the project. At the beginning of this project, and in Prijedor, the water utility company had 40% of the payment collection only, and the water tariffs were not cost covering. The citizens, they do have a right to have a safe and good quality water supply, but they also have, after the project or when they get the good service, they have an obligation to pay for that service. This is not cost-covering tariffs and not sustainable water utility companies is not only the problem of Prijedor. It's all over Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also I think this is the problem of all transition countries. And the reason is maybe I need to give a little explanation about it, is because first of all there is no political will. If you change and if you increase the water tariff, of course you lose votes. There is also there is an old habit from the communist times when water was a social category and there was subsidized and then there is of course the reason when the water supply service is not good, why to pay for that? There is also there was also a problem for the measurement. There was a lump sum and metering was not good for the water utility companies, not appropriate, so they could not charge it properly, and they cannot disconnect when somebody is not paying. Especially this was a problem for the apartment buildings. And last but not the least, the awareness of the citizens, what this price or tariff of the water consists of, the electricity operation and maintenance. So I can come out with some figures from this particular project, that is that the water tariff since 2006 increased from 0.35 euro cent to 0.75, which is almost 100%, but throughout the years. And the payment collection is increased from this 40% at the beginning to almost 90%, which is remarkable result. To get the company sustainable, and to be able, the citizens, to come back, they have to understand and to support that by paying their bills, to make the water utility company and their municipality capable not only to operate and maintain this infrastructure investment in water supply, maybe tomorrow in sewage or waste or solid waste management.
So happy citizens do pay their taxes, and happy citizens do also pay for their water bill, right?
That's right.
Absolutely. So Jose, in general term, what is actually, why is local governance important for the development of municipalities? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, I just can repeat what all the others have said up to now. It's easy for me when you come later. I mean, we can start with the example that has given our director, this from Gümligen, going through all the other examples that we have seen in the other countries. I think it's really the question of proper management in a municipality, proper management of an administration, being accountable to the citizens as authorities as administration, and also, for instance, the councils. And then it's really important also to find ways to get the citizens on board, to have them aware about what in a municipality has to be done, municipalities function, how they can participate, and then also open the door for them to really participate. And this often is the question that we have, particularly in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think we have motivated citizens who want to participate in a municipality. The question is, do we have the authorities who want that kind of citizens? To come maybe again to the example of Prijedor, I think, when we talk about governance and governance projects that we are implementing in the country, of course, we can come from the theories, we can come from the concepts, but then at a certain moment we have to step to practice. And I think the example showed that, for instance, municipal infrastructure in the water supply systems is an excellent entry point, an excellent vehicle to practice, finally, good governance, good municipal management. It needs then, of course, investment into infrastructure and so on, but it needs then also a lot of investment into capacity building for the utility managers. And only this way the people, the citizens, get aware what they also get when they pay the bill. And just to give you another figure, an additional one to one of Aida's, in Prijedor we have now a paying discipline for the drinking water bills of close to 90%, which is high for Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Okay. Such a project, I mean, water is one of the main basic services, but there are, of course, many more domains which have to be encouraged to provide good services. So what are the lessons learned from this kind of projects on other domains for the municipality? So that's a question for you, Aida.
In this project and in other complementary project of Swiss government or SDC Govade, there was the water was used as a vehicle, as an entry point, but there were additional not only capacity building, institutional strengthening, like in the case of Prijedor, but there was in parallel a good governance project which supported strategic planning, improvement of legislation, awareness raising, building capacities of civil society, and what is also very important, the project that helped to exchange experience and go out of the borders of one municipality, so intermunicipal cooperation was enhanced, and inter-entity cooperation. One good example is this Aquasan network, which was started in 2010. It was meant to be like a network of water specialists who were gathering around the water issues in one corner of Bosnia and Herzegovina. But then this network was spread all over Bosnia and Herzegovina. Today, in 2015, they are even working all around the region. They go to Serbia, they implement their self-sustainable, they implement some project, and they are not only specialists. Depending on the thematic field, they're also civil society representative, business representatives who participate. I think that this approach, which is not only hardware, as we said, only pipes, which is also the software components, legislation, civil society involvement, participatory planning, and this cooperation, I think it can be easily translated in other domains. It already tackled the economy development, but it can also be replicated in other domains where the municipal authorities are responsible to the citizens.
So Aida just mentioned hardware, software. In Bosnia, actually, both Swiss agencies are represented, so the SDC and the SECO. So what is the added value of that? We get it.
Well, I think it's known that we can combine, as you just said, in a kind of a synergetic way, hardware with software. If you talk about local governance, you can come from the sheer hardware side, which is the example that we just have seen, an investment, an important investment of SECO, 12.5 million Swiss francs over from 2008 to 2011. And this then was combined somehow with another project which was financed by SDC in the same area, and where Prijedor, the municipality, also was one of the partner municipalities, and where they really also participated in all the settings, proper planning, proper management concepts, implementation of proper management concepts, and then they somehow, as municipalities themselves, combined the two issues in their municipality. So with two projects, with two important projects, we could really enhance development. And I think this is a speciality, we can be proud of it, we can say that, which is probably a bit unique in the context of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's an added value. And you can see now that this experience is being translated from not just in the Prijedor municipality, but in others to other sectors. It's not just the water sector which is attractive. There are so many needs also, for instance, waste management, environmental development, and now also the economy. The whole learning that they have out of this, they can easily apply also in other sectors then.
Okay. Maybe, Aida, just in one sentence, I mean, you are having experience with the Swiss organizations, but also with others. So maybe in one word or one line, what is the difference? I mean, do you see, the added value on your side of this software-hardware approach, which was just mentioned? How is Swiss organizations working differently from others?
Yes, I worked for other donors and international financial institutions, but since 2008, what makes the difference between Swiss approach and the others, first of all, it is commitment to one region, to one area, and commitment to one sector, because transition is long, it's a generation process. It takes a change of the mindset of the people. So you cannot really expect quick results. You cannot build a treatment plant and then you leave it and then it's only cutted ribbon with nice photos, but then it's left and it's not working anymore. So what we appreciate, what I appreciate, and from Bosnian authorities very appreciated, this is this commitment to one region. And since 1997 already, since humanitarian phase, Swiss came to work. Well, Bona said from Albania 9 years. We are more. We are almost adult, 18 years of Swiss support in the water sector in this region. And the third thing that I have to mention, this is really something unique. That is, the Swiss also not preaching about this participatory approach. They also applied towards the local authorities and civil society. I was really amazed to learn when I joined in 2008 that projects are not defined and finalized and ready-made and brought to the local government, but there are some so-called workshops, planning workshops where beneficiaries, whether there are authorities or institutions or civil society or citizens, are welcome to validate the objectives of the projects, and there is also always flexibility of these projects to the changing environment. This is something which is highly appreciated from the Bosnian citizens and from the Bosnian authorities.
I didn't ask this question to feel good, but it still feels good to hear that. What also feels good, of course, is to kind of hear that local governance has improved. So I was wondering, with all this, are the municipalities in Bosnia-Herzegovina nowadays more reliable and more capable parties, also for donors, other than the Swiss government?
Thank you for this question. Of course, just again taking up, just giving you a figure of the project where AIDA was one of the implementers over the years from 2006 to 2013. Switzerland invested in that time 8.5 million Swiss francs, and triggered with this, that was a figure that our evaluators were estimating. We don't have an exact figure, but an estimated figure of triggered with this, more or less 60 million euros on additional investments by others, like, for instance, the Kreditanstalt für Wiederaufbau from Germany, EBRD, and others. And I think this is also kind of impact.
Okay, so I don't know what you're doing here in this case. You know, it sounds like everything under control. Do you agree, or from your perspective, is there things to be done?
I do believe that there is tangible progress that we can see in the region, but the truth is that there is still a lot of work to be done by the international communities and the local and central government themselves to improve the creditworthiness of the local governments, to improve their revenues, to make them more better in planning their budgets, defining the priorities for the local communities. So I think that yeah, there is a long way to go still. But indeed, we can actually see the municipalities that have worked with donors like SECO, they have better capacity and hence better access to financial resources to fulfill their investment needs for local infrastructure.
Maybe before I continue with you, I would like to actually ask for an input from Macedonia. Unfortunately, we have nobody here, but we have a mayor who actually benefits from the projects we will kind of look at now, the MIDF, so that we understand the reason behind it. So please.
Na si komun jemi drejtuar fondit për zhvillimin e infrastrukturë të komunave me IDF, që të na ndihmojë në ndihmën financiare për ndërtimin e rrugës që të lidhet dy pjesët e qytetit për të realizuar këtë projekt, po edhe na kemi bërë gjitha para përgatitjet për të ndërtuar dy pjesët e rrugës në të dy lagjet ndarët e lumit të Vardar, edhe në pjesën e lagjës silike, edhe në pjesën e lagjës Dutlok. Mjetet janë siguruar nga tatimet të cilët i paguajnë qytetarët tanë, por ato mjetet nuk janë të mjaftueshme dhe prandaj ndihma e mjeteve financiare që na vjen nga MDIDF është shumë e mirëseardhur që na ta realizojmë këtë projekt shumë të rëndësishëm për qytetarët e qytetit të Gosjevarit.
So just give a tiny little introduction, a little bit. So what is actually this MIDF, Municipality Infrastructure Development Fund, and who are the stakeholders?
Exactly as you said, it is, we call it Municipal Infrastructure Development Fund, and we established it back in 2012. Why we have established this innovative financing vehicle? I mean, if you look at the market in the Western Balkans, it is characterized with a huge backlog of investments and lack of, let's say, sufficient reform. And the financial crisis in the recent years didn't help either, because the public spending reduced by more than 30%. The municipalities, by the way, 86% of the number of municipalities are small municipalities with a number of people below 100,000. They don't have the sufficient capacity to develop projects which could attract financing from banks and donors on one hand. And on the other hand, the commercial banks, the local banks that have the liquidity, they didn't have the appetite to invest in those projects because they regard them as too risky. And this situation is not sustainable, especially considering the expectation that the region will potentially join the European Union in the next decade. Therefore, we have established this dedicated financial vehicle which will bring the gap on the market by bringing the commercial banks and the municipalities together to fund projects which are priorities for the local communities. In addition to that, we have, in addition to the financing, we have a huge package of technical assistance for the partner banks we are going to work with and our ultimate beneficiaries, which are the municipalities, the local utility companies, also private sector who are engaged in providing municipal services to build capacity so that the banks on one hand could evaluate and manage municipal risk, and municipalities that should be able to prepare and implement good quality projects. So, yeah, this is what is MIDF all about.
Actually, the SECO is a donor of this fund. So how does this fit into the SECO portfolio?
Well, I mean, you were just convinced by the presentation now that MIDF is an important, a very interesting tool for municipal development. It fills a gap of a finance tool on local level with commercial banks. And this is flexible, accessible, easy accessible for the municipalities whenever they have interesting and reliable plans for investments. For us, of course, it's also a theme of donor harmonization, what we have whenever we say. There is no need that we do ourselves financing directly. We can join others. We can join tools which are already existing and pay into these funds, fund pooling or harmonization of funds if you want, and this reduces our transaction costs for all of us. That does not mean that we just get rid somehow of our money. We also have a saying. We can say how this money has to be invested. We can be on the boards of decision making, and we can also contribute with validated know-how from our projects through these funds to scale up and to have a higher effect. And so all in all, it's a win-win situation for all of us, scaling up higher effectiveness and efficiency, and then finally also a better impact of our investment.
Ilyana, can you tell us a little bit more on how the MIDF is structured and how it operates?
Well, it's an investment fund. It's a special legal entity which has few institutional investors, SECO and the German government, together with EBRD and the German bank KfW. However, I want to use this opportunity to thank SECO for investing in the vehicle, because without their investment, this wouldn't have happened. And I want to thank my colleague Priska and Tim and Ivo who worked with me in the past 4 years to put this forward. So we have the German and SECO, which are the donors, and thanks to them, banks like my bank and KfW and the commercial banks will be able to take the risk and invest in those projects in the region. How we do that, as I said, we work with the commercial banks. We have few partner banks in each country, and we co-finance with them, and we share their risk when we invest in those projects. So each commercial bank shall also put some money at risk. And the lesson learned is that by joining forces, probably in the very near future, the banking sector, the local banking sector will be able to invest in the local infrastructure and the local economies, which is the ultimate goal at the end of the day. So this is what we do on the lending side. By the way, these are loans. We provide loans that should be repaid by the local governments, which is good because this is going to help shifting the culture from grant-funded investments, which we had in the past, to a more responsible investment culture by the local governments, because they borrow, they implement the project with their own forces, and they repay the investment, taking the money from additional revenues, let's say if we invest in the water sector, or saving costs from reducing water losses, or building kindergartens and schools and roads, essential infrastructure for the local communities.
Iljana, thank you very much. You already answered my third question, so we kind of catch a little bit on time on that. So thank you very much. And I must say that you can see how passionate and convinced you are of your product in this sense. You know, I think it would deserve a big applause in a certain way. You know, she goes for it. So the question I almost have is, can private people also sponsor or be donors of this fund?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
They're very welcome, but they have to be prepared to be, to take additional risk.
Okay, talking about this risk, I mean, maybe two final questions for you, Jose. First, I mean, some people might be surprised to hear that, SECO invests grant money into a risky commercial fund. What would you reply to that?
Well, without the risk, we will not have development, we will not have effects. Of course, it's a risk, but we also have the tools to follow up what happens, to monitor, and we have moments, we can stop the whole thing at the right moment when the thing is not going the way we want. And I think that's with all kind of investment, it's not just SECO investment, whatever investment in development work, it's the same. There is a moment where we take a risk, especially with a first project, and we have to find out first how it works. The thing is that we have a strong monitoring system in place, which helps us to make corrections on the run of the project, and also even take the break when it does, break it when it does not function anymore.
Yeah. I think it was not discussed with Jose before, but maybe can you, in a certain way, recap actually what has been said so far in terms of local governance and what what the importance of it. Recap. I mean, you already said it, but kind of to close this part of this afternoon before the break. I'm sure you can do that very nice and convincingly.
Well, I just can repeat what we have said many times. It's about proper management in municipalities. This means we need a kind of a proper planning, a proper setting, what we want to do, that in the municipalities, authorities and citizens exactly know what they want to do and can do, because we have to work with limited resources, as you could see also in the introductory slides, and the priorities have to be set very clearly. Then it needs high transparency from the authorities to the citizens, establishing accountability. And again, I want to come back, we have to find ways in the Balkans still how to get the citizens on board. Up to now, we have been working, I just said 18 years and more, always a little bit on the supply side. We have been working, municipalities are suppliers for citizens, and the citizens are the receivers, but we have to turn a little bit the thing around. citizens also can have a stake. Citizens can become responsive and responsible, but for this they have to understand their role and they have to get the opportunity to play this role, as we do it also, for instance, here in Switzerland. And this is a change of our mindset, which takes still a little bit of time, maybe another generation. Aida, what do you think? And then we have to establish the networks, the cooperation networks within the municipalities. Well, I could say a lot more. What I think is what we can do with our programs, at least in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where we have a really difficult context. I always think we can find people who want to move the country ahead at all levels, from individuals at the bottom level in the villages, up to the authorities, up to the highest levels of the government, in the civil society. Our art must be to find these positive elements and give them a hand and help them to really go ahead. And then I think we have done our job. But this is a long-term thing. And well, maybe the Swiss cooperation is pragmatic enough to know that and also to go for this. And this is maybe a little bit also the Swiss approach in the Balkans.
It's maybe a Swiss approach, but when I was listening to you, it almost sounded like, yes, we can. But we have to mobilize everybody. So basically, we will now mobilize everybody here in the room to go downstairs for a coffee break. But I would like to thank Ilyana, Jose, and of course, Aida for their time and their insights.